FSH stands for the face, and for what's called the scapular area, which is the shoulder blade, shoulder area. And then the humerus stands for the major bone that's in the upper arm, the humerus bone, and so humeral refers to the muscles around the upper arm. So it's a disease that especially affects muscles of the face, the shoulder, and the upper arm. Hence the name FSH, muscular dystrophy.
Just getting out of bed is kind of hard sometimes because I can't just get up. I have to grab onto my leg and pull myself up. Then I have to, when I go to take a shower in the morning, washing my hair, I have to tilt my head down and lift my hand up at the same time. It's not easy anymore to do that. Sometimes when I get very weak, driving my car to work is harder than it should be.
It's an autosomal dominant disease, so that means that if someone has it, each of their children has a 50-50 chance of inheriting it.
We've always both been able to say, you have what Papa has. And to both of our children, what Papa has always been very normal. They haven't noticed a decline, they just noticed that he's their Papa, and the way he does things is the way he does things. If he holds his hand funny, that's just Papa. It's not funny to them, it's or strange to them. But Harry has it more severely, and I don't know how they will come to grips with the fact that it is a degenerative disease, that it's not just now that he chews with his mouth open, that it's that someday eating may be really hard, lifting the food to his mouth may be hard, and all those things that we don't want to go there, we don't want to think about it, we don't want him to think about it. He will, and he will soon.
There can be new mutations. It sometimes starts with the first person in a family, but once that happens, each child of that individual has a 50-50 chance of inheriting the disease.
My mom, I think she felt kind of guilty at first because, she's my parent and it is hereditary most of the time. So she kind of felt like maybe it's her fault or something. But I mean, I look at it that I was just a random mutation, and I mean, really, it's just random chance, there's nothing you can do about it.
Harry read a letter to his classmates explaining himself.
FSH, muscular dystrophy problem. I wrote a note.
We talked about talking to the class about it, and when I mentioned that to him, he said that it would be a good idea to talk because he sometimes gets teased about the way he eats with his mouth open. People say, close your mouth, and he just tries to do it but doesn't say anything. And he decided that he would say something, so we wrote down what he said, and here's what he read to his class. I have a muscular dystrophy problem, and it's happening on my mouth. It makes me chew in a different way. I open my mouth when I chew because it's happening in my mouth. It's very hard to stop because it makes my muscles weak. I'll try my best, but please don't jump to conclusions. No one knew that I had it. If you want me to chew with my mouth closed, ask a question, please, because it's very hard. He didn't really put himself away from that. I think that brought him closer to the kids in his class, and they were compassionate without really understanding what he was saying. What the dystrophy is. They were compassionate and tried to connect their own experiences to his.
Males get it, females get it, and it has a lot of variety. There are some cases of the disease that are fairly severe, and people are quite disabled by it, and it may even shorten their lifespan. There are other individuals where the disease is so mild, they in fact are unaware that they even carry the gene for the disease. They may have just a little bit of weakness of one arm, and it may not even be noticeable. And then everything in between.
It's gotten to the point now where changing a light bulb on the ceiling is a big task. So I have to have my parents help me with things like that, or fixing the closet door if it falls off the rails. Anything lifting my hands up over my head is a major task.
I mean, I think a little bit about what my future will be like. You know, like I could have like a severe problem in the next few years, maybe, or you know, nothing for like 20 years, and then all of a sudden something happens. But I don't think about that too much. I just try to enjoy what I can now.
Someday I could be in a wheelchair. It doesn't happen to all of us, but I think it's 50% of us end up in wheelchairs, so that scares me a lot. And then I might need assisted care. I don't know. But unless a cure is found, I think life is going to get pretty tough in the future. And it's something I don't really like to think about a lot.
Fear about the future. And it's always there. And that Bill will tell me Harry's going to be just fine. And part of me knows, yes, he'll be fine. He will have his life. But the other part of me says, well, what does fine mean?
I get fatigued very easily, especially when the disease is, where I'm having a weak period with the disease. Vacuuming is a major task. Just basically any household chore that a normal person would do takes me about twice as long.
I'm encouraged. I think things are moving in a good direction. I'm hopeful that for Harry and others that there will be treatments available. And I firmly believe that there will be treatments available. So I'm not going through the motions. I really expect that all this effort is going to yield something.
The goal of our research, or part of the thing that we're interested in FSH, muscular dystrophy, is to learn about the major protein or proteins that are affected by the disease. And once that information is learned, and that's not easy, there are a number of labs working all around the world to identify these proteins. Once that information is learned, then what we're hoping is that we can use these molecular switches to help to produce therapeutic proteins that could be administered to persons with this disease that would overcome the disease problem.
So a lot of genes, for instance, make proteins that help muscle cells develop into muscle cells and contract and help you move and do things with your body. The mutations that often cause disease are mutations in these genes which alter the function of a particular protein. In this case, however, we have a somewhat different phenomenon. We have a change in a part of the DNA that's giving rise to this disease, but that's not the part of the DNA that actually makes a protein. And so the first challenge is going to be to figure out why the cell behaves differently when you lose this piece of DNA which makes no protein. And the idea is that this piece of DNA that's being lost is helping to regulate the expression of genes in the neighboring regions of the chromosome. And so there are genes that make proteins nearby where this region is that are becoming altered because you're changing this region. In the case of FSHD, the defect that leads to the disease is a loss of a region of DNA in the nucleus, which is causing a disorganization of the nucleus. And my training and expertise has been in studying how the nucleus is put together in a cell, and so I can apply that to study how things have changed in this particular case of cells from individuals with this disease. Steve has worked for decades on muscle differentiation. He's really one of the founders in terms of working on how muscle cells differentiate in culture. And so by combining our expertise, we hopefully can make a lot of progress.
So the whole idea is to get movement going in the field of FSH research, and a good way to do that is with offering pilot project money.
I think a tremendous advantage in this type of philanthropic organization in terms of the sort of bang they get for their buck, and that the labs are already equipped and they know, I think, what they're doing, so that The money goes for basically hiring additional personnel that can concentrate their efforts really on working on this, focusing on this particular project. Use this primarily for the salary of a jointly mentored postdoctoral fellow who has already been well trained in the molecular biology of skeletal muscle gene regulation. And so he has the general background, although he's never worked in FSH muscular dystrophy, he has the general background to get right into this problem with our assistance and to follow up on the best ideas that we and he can come up with.
On average, about, 10 or 15 of us in the lab here, and then about the same number in Brian's lab. What's really nice is Steve is an excellent muscle lab, and Brian is an excellent nuclear structure lab. Yeah. And so putting those two things together gives it a huge range of expertise that you just don't normally have from being in one single lab. Yeah. I mean, that's the real power of the arrangement right now.
Yeah. The additional monies that we need for the research will come out of grants that we have from the National Institutes of Health, which support our work on a variety of muscle diseases, and they're perfectly comfortable with us using some of this funds for working on this particular muscular disease. So it will already, the money will already be sort of part of a larger project that's will be focused on this disease.
Raising money is what helps scientists get started doing research, and I think that ultimately it's the activities like this that to raise money that really serve as the foundation for eventually developing cures, and hopefully we'll be able to make good use of that money to learn a lot about the FSHD.
I think about this probably on a weekly basis, what they're doing and what's going on at the University of Washington. It gives me hope.